Neymar and Ronaldinho are two of the greatest Brazilian football players to ever play the game, and without a doubt, two of the most entertaining players in modern times. But which one is better? Which one of these two magicians does it make sense to pick to win a must-win game, a tournament, or even a season? To find the answer to this question, we will be using a mixture between team play and individual effort, by firstly getting rid of surface-level information such as statistics to more in-depth analysis, their impact on team, the eye test, and performances. So without wasting any more time, just how good are these two players statistically? Neymar's career total is 589 games with 360 goals along with 220 assists playing as a winger. His stats for Barcelona and Brazil are equally as impressive. Although it might not look it, he is one of the few players in history to have a close goal contribution to game played ratio for almost every team that he plays on. Neymar's bad reputation and his career stats could only make sense if he was playing within the golden age of football, because I believe that's one of the only ways a player could be this good statistically without being ranked as one of the greatest of all time. Ronaldinho's all-time stats are 561 games with 202 goals along with 171 assists, playing as a winger and an attacking midfielder. His stats for Barcelona and Brazil are also impressive when in context of position played. To not just use these numbers at face value, to find out who is a better player statistically, we have to compare these numbers to players within their respective position. For Ronaldinho, if we compare him to some of the best midfielders, he would be one of the best, but wouldn't necessarily stand out. And if you say it's unfair to compare him to midfielders, seeing that his best years were him playing on the left, when compared to wingers, he would be under heavy competition from players like Robin, Salah, and Gareth Bale. While on the other hand, Neymar is more than a standout in his position, contending with players like Ronaldo and Messi. Even if we only use Ronaldinho's time at Barcelona as a way to filter out majority of the time he played as a midfielder, he is still no match for Neymar. So on a statistical level, Neymar is a much better player relative to his position than Ronaldinho. So that's 1 point for Neymar. But stats doesn't always tell the full story, especially when we are talking about midfielders. After all, if the game was about statistics, Zinedine Zidane would never be consistently ranked among the best in the world with these numbers. So which one of these players have a bigger impact on team? If we use a player like Zidane for example, to find out how impactful his presence is for his national team, I analyze how France perform both when he's on the pitch and when he's off, from his debut to his retirement, and the answer was as expected. Despite his personal numbers being inferior to many midfielders, his unwritten number was much higher. Of the 158 games France played during Zinedine Zidane's career, the team win rate was 65%, averaging 1.86 goals per game. If we filter out these games into two sections, game that he played and game that he didn't, you will see these numbers. Of the 108 games Zidane played, the win rate was 70%, with the team averaging 2 goals a game. But when he's not playing, there is a 13% decrease for the win ratio, and goals scored is cut by 25%. This is just one of the few ways we can compare offensive players' impact on team without using goals and assists. So how does this apply to Ronaldinho? Of the 97 games that Ronaldinho played, Brazil's goal ratio was 2.2 goals a game, with their win rate being 53%. When he's not playing, goals scored decreased by 10%, but weirdly enough, the team win ratio actually increased. If we compare this to Neymar's time at Brazil, when Neymar plays, Brazil's win ratio is 71%, almost 20% more than Ronaldinho's. And if that wasn't crazy enough, of the 60 games that Neymar missed for Brazil, their win rate dropped to 50%. Let's all think about that for a second. Goals scored also decreased from 2.17 to 1.83, which is a 15% decrease. This means that Neymar's overall importance for his team is much higher compared to Ronaldinho's, which makes sense. Ronaldinho was never really good enough to be the main man at Brazil. Neymar is. But what about the eye test? To get the most accurate data possible without being biased, I selected the best UCL tournament both players ever played, the 2005-06 season for Ronaldinho and the 2016-17 season for Neymar, in the hopes of finding their average pass per game, dribbles, who's more excited on the ball, their speed and strength throughout the tournament. And after realizing there's no available data for something so specific, at least not in public, I proceeded to watch 31 hours of football in 2 days. Like, share, and subscribe if you like the content. After watching all of Ronaldinho matches, I can honestly say that he lives up to his reputation as a player that focuses more on improvisation than skill. Something that I have to mention first before talking about my findings. Ronaldinho is a better passer than Neymar. His average passes per game is 35 from 44, compared to Neymar's 32 from 42. This honestly doesn't do Ronaldinho any justice, however, because of the type of passes he was trying to do in these games. He would try the most insane attempts at a pass, passes that no one would ever see. And because of it, I believe that's the reason why his pass percentage is so low. Neymar, on the other hand, is much more cautious with the choices that he makes, opting for more logical decisions, and his pass completion was still lower than Ronnie's. So that's a point for Ronaldinho. Although I wasn't able to find the amount of dribbles completed during this tournament, for dribbles attempted, surprisingly enough, is in Neymar's favor, with 21 attempted dribbles compared to 19 attempted dribbles per match. Neymar gets the point for this one. He was visually more lethal doing 1v1s and actively ran at his opponents, especially when losing, which makes sense seeing that he has the most completed dribbles in this tournament. This means visually, Neymar was just as involved in the game as Ronaldinho, making up the difference when it comes to his passing with his runs. When it comes to who is more visually pleasing to look at when playing, this one is a tie for me. As I said before, Neymar this tournament was just running at people and getting past them with ease, which is extremely entertaining. Ronaldinho, on the other hand, was just more innovative with the ball, trying to create something from nothing, which makes you question his choices sometimes, but more often than not, leaves you in shock. So within the context of this tournament, this is a tie for me. For their sprint speed, there wasn't a standout moment during this tournament for me to calculate or visually measure how fast they are. So after searching around, of the few information that I could find on Ronaldinho, he could run up to 18, possibly 20 miles per hour, while there are numbers like 21 and above for Neymar. So that's 1 point for him. And for strength, I don't think there is one hardcore Neymar fan that would argue that he's stronger or more physical than Ronaldinho. He's just overall a much more physical player. So that's 1 more point for him. After watching all those games, it seems that these two players are relatively balanced when it comes to the eye test. So a tie in this section is more than justified. However, if you think Ronaldinho should win this section, or vice versa, it's fine because it won't change the outcome anyway. This section will be split into 2 parts, awards and trophies. For awards, Ronaldinho's cabinet is just a lot better than Neymar. He has a Ballon d'Or, 2 FIFA Men Best Player Award, along with 1 UEFA Best Player in Europe, compared to Neymar's Puskas and 4-time Goal Scorer of the Year awards. I'm sure Neymar would accept that trade any day of the week. There is also a similar pattern when it comes to trophies won as well. Despite Neymar having more, The quality of his silverware compared to Ronaldinho is just lacking. Without a World Cup and a Copa America title, Neymar just seemed to be lacking. We could argue that Neymar just had a harder time winning, seeing that he's competing within the golden age of football. But as much as I would agree, this is just a point for Ronaldinho. For this section, we will be seeing which one of these two players had a better game, a tournament, and season. For a single game, Ronaldinho has a lot of classics. His 1v1 death match against Neymar in Brazil is one of the first ones to come to mind, and his hat-trick that he scored for AC Milan is one of his best moments. But without a doubt, his brace against Real will always be remembered by fans around the world as his best performance. I mean, the man got a standing ovation from Real Madrid supporters that night. You simply have to be a special player to be able to do something like that. An iconic game indeed. But can Neymar compete with that? Neymar has some classics of his own. Who can remember that one time Neymar had 7 goal contributions in one game? Or that one time he scored 4 goals with PSG with that iconic celebration? But I'm sure everyone can agree that Neymar's best game, or the best game, was when Barcelona pulled off a 6-1 comeback in the UCL. This is one of the greatest performances you probably ever see from a single player. 5 of the 6 goals that was scored that night had something to do with Neymar. The greatest comeback in the most competitive tournament. I think that's a point for Neymar. For who has the better tournament? Without a doubt, Ronaldinho has the better performances throughout an entire tournament. His 2005-06 Champions League campaign arguably started the golden age for Barcelona. And it's just overall better than anything Neymar has in comparison. The best tournament Neymar has on record was his 2015-16 Champions League campaign, and in terms of numbers, it is not comparable to Ronaldinho's. So, that's a point for Ronnie. The best season on record on the other hand, Neymar is the winner of this section. Although the difference between their best performances in a single season is only 5 goals, Neymar has 2 different seasons on record that's pushing 50 goal contributions. This is a feat Ronaldinho only has done once on the highest level. Neymar honestly is so great, he was able to casually have a number of seasons where his goal contribution is higher than game played, while playing around with defenders in the league, only ever having problems when it comes to the Champions League, if he plays. So to conclude, the final score is 3.5 to 1.5. And if you think Ronaldinho should get the eye test, it wouldn't make much of a difference. Neymar would still be the winner. His career is on a much higher level when compared to Ronnie for much longer. If you liked the video and want to see more, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.